This is Mertensia maritima, also known as the oyster leaf. So a while ago I reviewed something on this channel called Salsify, which also has the name oyster plant because it's supposed to taste like oysters. It didn't taste like oysters. This one, however, is definitely supposed to taste like oysters. I'm a vegetarian, so I've never had an oyster. I don't really know what an oyster tastes like. And in the past, I have reviewed also a leaf that tastes like fish, and a leaf that tastes like beef, and other things like that. But I don't really have a good basis of comparison, so I can't say for certain whether or not something tastes like the thing it's supposed to taste like. Well, today, I actually am able to back this up a little bit because I actually found a study that analyzed the compounds in this leaf and compared it to an oyster. And let me read this to you. It says, oyster leaf has a surprising oyster-like aroma. Its volatile composition was investigated here for the first time. In total, 109 compounds were identified by gas chromatography mass spectrometry and quantified by GCFID. The use of GC olfactometry on both polar and non-polar columns allowed the detection of the molecules having an oyster-like marine odor. After evaluation of freshly prepared reference samples, these compounds were confirmed to be reminiscent of the oyster-like marine notes perceived in the tasting of cut leaves. So I don't really understand much of what was in that that study, but they did find a comparison of 4 of the compounds in the leaf with 4 of the compounds in oysters. So there is at least some sort of correlation between the two. So that's kind of nifty. And the smell of this actually has kind of a, it does have kind of like a, not fishy, but like oceany kind of smell. I'm going to eat some of this in a second, and I'm also going to do something with it, but first I want to thank Wanderlust Nursery for sending this to me. So if you are interested in growing the oyster leaf, check out the link in the description below. Here goes. So maybe I've never had an actual oyster before, but I do live and breathe, guys, and I have lived and I have breathed on the side of oceans and lakes, and I have smelled that air. I've gotten salt water in my mouth while swimming around at a beach. I don't know exactly if this tastes like oysters, but it does taste like the beach. It's got a seawater kind of flavor to it in a weird way. Because it's not salty, it's not dirty, it's got a clean vegetable kind of flavor to it, and it's kind of like a sweet sort of flavor to it. But it tastes like how the ocean smells. It tastes like seawater minus the salt. And that's not seaweed. I've had seaweed. I don't like seaweed. This is like something else. And it's kind of giving me this weird repulsion. I was raised vegetarian. If I were to eat fish, I would probably get very, very ill. And this is kind of like sounding the alarm off for me. That was not the case with Salsify. Salsify did not do that to me. It's not a fishy flavor. You know, when I had fish leaf, that tasted really fishy. This is more of like a sweet sort of seawater kind of taste. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting, and I think this is the sort of thing where if you wanted to, you could take this leaf and make like an oyster substitute out of it, or if you wanted to cook something that would normally have oysters in it but didn't want to put oysters in it for whatever reason, you could use this leaf. And just like looking at this objectively, like not as a vegetarian, but just like objectively, like are these good flavors? They are. It is nice. It's got a nice, clean flavor to it. And I think that, if I didn't have that association with the oyster, I probably would like this. This is something that people do use. It's something that's grown in Northern Europe. And in Northern Europe, there's a whole history of people using this plant. And I can see why. You want some oysters? You like fish? She's interested in it. She knows. She knows it's not really oysters. So I searched around for recipes that called for oysters, and one thing that came up was a recipe on the James Beard website for an oyster pasta. And so I glanced at it, and then I turned off my computer and I came over here. So I'm not going to be following that exactly, but I'm going to put a couple of the same components in it and see if I can get anywhere close to something good using the leaf. Garlic, some more garlic, some shallots, and some more shallots. Now that's got a little bit of color to it. I'm going to put the pasta back in, making sure to drop a couple into my stove. Toss in the oyster leaf. Don't want these to cook too much so they don't lose their flavor. I'm going to top this with a generous helping of Parmesan cheese. Movie magic, it's cotija cheese. I don't have any Parmesan. Bit more black pepper. And finally, the most important thing, garnish with a fork. Not a cooking channel. I actually have a turntable, I'm just too lazy to get it out. Well, my cat doesn't want to eat it. She is interested in it, at least. She wants to smell it. Alright, let's take a bite before I get cat hair in my food. Too late. The flavor of this is, it's good. It's good. The oyster leaf flavor it's there, but it's very mild. The main flavor I'm getting, though, is garlic. Garlic and shallots, which, for me, is a good thing. The oyster leaf is a little bit weird for me. So having like a little touch in there, it's kind of nice. It adds like another element to it without like overpowering this with the flavor of bivalves. So I think if you wanted this to have a strong excuse me, you don't want to touch a fork when I'm eating. No. Ugh. Let's get a new fork. You have dirty little litter paws. Yes, baby. Okay. So for me, I think putting a little bit of those leaves in a pasta dish or a salad or something is a good way to add like an extra element to it without it being overpowering. If you wanted this to taste more like oysters or use this as an oyster substitute, I think it would work for that. You just have to use a lot more of those leaves. You'd have to put like a ton of these leaves in there, and that would give it a little bit more of that sort of flavor. Because I think oysters themselves are kind of mild. These leaves are also kind of mild, but they do have this flavor that is reminiscent of the beach. So if that's something you're interested in, I would say check it out. It's kind of a fun one either way. And yeah, I think that's about it. So thanks again to Wanderlust Nursery, and thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Before you click out, I'd like to give a shout out to Smarter Every Day. Smarter Every Day is a mega patron over on Patreon.com. Patreon.com, if you haven't heard about it, it's how I afford to keep making this channel. It's how I afford to make all these videos, and also how I afford to feed this small animal right here. So if you've enjoyed my videos, if you'd like to help support the channel, check out the link in the description below. If you don't want to do Patreon, I also have t-shirts available. There's a link to that in the description below as well. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.